Hello, everyone. Good morning from a very cold Cape Town. My name is Natasha Kimani, and I'm the head of partnerships and research at Africa No Filter. Thank you for making time for us today. A very quick note to say thank you for being with us today, and I would like to introduce my very beautiful and able panelist of the day, Marie Mbullu. And today we are tackling TikTok, how to master TikTok. What does it take to create a TikTok page so influential that it gets media funding? And who else is better placed to tell us this than Marie? Marie, I'm excited to have you. Before I bombard you with my gazillion questions, because I have many, we would like to first hear from you. Over to you.
I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to talk about TikTok. And so today we're going to talk about how to master TikTok, especially from a storyteller's perspective. Next slide, please. So a little bit about me. My name is Marie Mbullu. I am a Tanzanian American. I'm based in Washington, D.C. and Dar es Salaam. When I'm not making content, I do digital marketing strategy to companies targeting Gen Z and millennials, especially companies that are targeting an African audience, but a young African audience. I also run a nonprofit called Kutoa Ni Upendo. We support organizations in the continent who are advocating for sustainable and grassroots change. And I'm also the creator and producer of the channel Habari Njema. Next slide, please. So I grew up in the United States and in Tanzania. So I was constantly being presented with conflicting narratives about the continent. When I'm in the United States, especially before Wakanda came out, I don't want to say, it was harder to be African. When they hear like your last name, like my last name is Mbullu, automatically you're othered, and people are that during that time associated Africa with being uncivilized, having a lack of infrastructure, the lack of technology, like even like having a lack of basics and necessities. So people wonder, how did you come to the United States? You know, how do you know English? Like it was very hard, and you had to prove yourself like twice, like I'm capable, I know how to speak English. Like it's honestly like a struggle to walk through, to be like being a young person and being African. So, but when I was in Tanzania, and I would go back and be like, oh, we have internet, and and basic necessities are already covered. And you know, I would see like innovative things, like things that would make life easier that we don't have even in the US. And so like I constantly like struggled to explain with people like, no, actually, things are very different than from what you see. And like you can tell people stuff, but if they don't see that, then it's so hard to change their mind like about the continent and about our people. Yeah. Next slide, please. And from what I see in the continent, while I'm in the continent, and I'll see these people telling great stories, or I'll be like, you know, you should post this. More people need to hear about this. How does nobody know about this? But it's because a lot of people, they don't have, you know, it costs money to tell stories. Telling stories by itself, it's hard to get that to pay the bills. And it's hard to translate that into food. So people need, and data in the continent is very expensive. So if you're choosing between spending, you know, your lunch money on telling a story, most people are going to choose to buy lunch. So the continent needs cheaper internet, one that's more reliable. We also see news organizations, especially the ones that are pay, it's hard to find ones that will pay about positive news or about news that is not that doesn't go along with the narrative that we already see. So like the people who are telling stories, they're not being incentivized to perpetuate positive stereotypes about the continent. And again, you know, money, you need money to eat. So without that incentive and without cheaper, more reliable internet, it's going to be increasingly difficult to shift that narrative. And I also would like to place some blame on organizations. There'll be big organizations telling African stories, or corporations that are targeting an African audience. And I've talked to these corporations, you know, your head of content has never been in Africa. You know, what type of content are they going to make towards their audience? There's always going to be like an implicit bias if you've never been in the continent, you don't have an African background, you know, and you haven't, you maybe you know how to create content and create news, but you don't have enough background knowledge about the continent. So what you see is what you are also going to perpetuate. So there also needs to be more, you need people with an African background in higher positions where they can control narratives about the continent as well. Next slide, please. And yeah, it says that this slide talks more about that infrastructure is really key. And all besides data, there's not many people who even feel the need for a smartphone. So like to have a phone or a digital camera, it's expensive. We have high taxes in the continent too. So if you want to, maybe it's cheap abroad, but here you're paying double the price. So it's a lot of bureaucracy that storytellers are fighting just to be able to share content, to share it digitally. And now I've even seen like some countries are taxing content creators. So like even to tell a story, if you start to make money now, you will be facing an additional tax. So there's also, it's not necessarily a storyteller friendly environment for African storytellers at the time too. Next slide, please. So I started to tell stories on TikTok because it was really easy to use. They already had like an in-app recording system, so I didn't have to go record and edit a video. And TikTok, they would push a video, you could have 0 followers and a video could go viral. And I thought that was really interesting. And as long as I put #Africa, #news, people who are interested in African news will find that TikTok just based on the algorithm. So it was really easy to use. And TikTok also likes videos that are more amateur, that are more organic. So I know I didn't have to extremely edit my video for it to do well. I felt like there's equal opportunities. So as long as you make good content on TikTok, eventually one of that is going to reach your target audience. And you never know who's watching either. Like maybe you have 100 views, but the person who is one of those people is a brand and they would like your thing and they reach out to you. So I felt like TikTok is great for beginners. And I feel like it's also great for people who think like my niche is too specific. People will find you. You will find other people who really like your niche. Next slide, please. And so now I'm going to talk more about what Habari Njema is. So Habari Njema is an African information channel, and it discusses all things Africa. So we do politics, pop culture, innovations, news, current events, and history. And right now it's shared on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So right now it's been, I think, almost 2 years. And now we're closer to 700,000 followers. And on average, we receive 2 to 2.5 million views a month. And the top countries, so I target people in the diaspora who miss the continent. And I also target now the continent itself as the audience has grown larger. So my top countries used to just be United States, Canada, London, but now we have a large audience in Kenya and South Africa, which is great. I love it. Next slide, please. So I started posting stories that I felt were interesting to me. There was no organization. There was no like, I know I'm going to post this topic and this topic. I would look at things in my daily life or look at news that I have in the daily life, and I'd be like, no, that would be cool. Let me post it. And then over time, I would see like, oh, my audience likes to talk about this, and I like to talk about this. And I started to create series. So Good News Sunday, where we only post good news on Sunday, or Cool African Things, where I post like the most innovative things I'd find in the continent. And we also have, there's more, but another one we did was Africa IRL. So where I'd post like when I'm in the continent, I post my daily life, where I go to eat, how I get around, what I do with my friends. Because a lot of people don't even, first, there's a lot of people who miss being back home, like my friends abroad. So they love to see like, oh, I remember doing that back home. And there's people who have never seen like African infrastructure, African nightlife, the food culture here. So that's also been a super interesting thing for my followers to watch. Next slide, please. So to find my point of view, I just used what came naturally to me. So I'm a Tanzanian American. So a lot of people like to say I don't have like the full Tanzanian experience, but you know, I when I tell people like, no, like I was in the US, but I had to go home because there was no money for me to stay in the US. So like I came back and I lived with my grandparents, and I have lived the Tanzania experience. I was there, you know, bucket showers, you know, electricity comes and goes, like things that, you know, things that are very normal, cooking, like, you know, with charcoal, you know, normal things that are, I don't want to say ubiquitous to living in the continent, but things that many people have experienced. But it's also, it's very different. Like, I don't want to say to like live in two extremes, but like, it's just, it's like I culture shock myself every time I go back, back to Dar es Salaam or back to Tanzania, because like, it's just a very, very different way of life. And I feel like I choose content. I don't choose content based off of, sometimes I'll choose content based off my audience, but most of the times I'll choose like, oh, I think this is interesting. Maybe nobody else is, but I'm going to post it because I think it's interesting. I don't try to force content because everyone's talking about it. I find that first it won't do well, and it will show like I don't really care about this topic. I'm just posting it because other people told me to post it. So I love to do things naturally. Like if I think it's interesting, I'm going to post. But if I don't think it's interesting, I'm not going to post. And I try not to think too hard about what I'm going to post, because then again, it comes out so forced and low effort too. Next slide, please. So here are my do's and don'ts of TikTok. Next slide, please. So do be original. This goes along with what I was saying before. It's really hard. Like if you sit and you force like, I need to post something today, just, it's better for you to have high quality content than content all the time. So if you can't think of something to post, don't do it. If you don't have anything saved, maybe if you have a draft saved, post a draft, but don't force yourself to post on TikTok because you need to. It's going to be unsustainable to maintain like, I have to post every day because I need to post every day. And your audience is going to get used to like, oh, she posts every day. She hasn't posted today. I'm unfollowing, you know? So like you want to get an audience that you can sustain. I knew for me, like so there's like, if you're in school, you know, I'm not making enough money to do this full time. There's no way I can post this every day. So eventually your audience will get used to like, oh, she didn't post this week, she'll post eventually. And you'll be able to grow an audience that you can sustain. And when you have an idea, I always say trust your intuition. So when you have an idea and it comes naturally to you, it will show that you're interested in it. It'll show that you're knowledgeable about that. And it will show like it's so much easier to convince an audience like this is an interesting idea when you yourself think it's interesting than when you don't believe it's interesting. How can you convince someone else? So I say don't try to be original, and there's a higher chance that video will do well. And I also try to say set yourself apart. There's a lot of people, like maybe there's a lot of people already in your niche, like if you're in makeup or if you're in gaming, or like, so try to set yourself apart. And by saying that, I mean like that comes with originality. Nobody can do you know. So like maybe you do makeup, but you have a special style that you do, or maybe you do a story time with it, or you have a type of makeup that you do, like try to set yourself apart. And by being original, you're already setting yourself apart. But if you find yourself like you're looking at other ideas, and like there's one thing if it's a trend, but if you can't turn that trend into something that's relevant for you, don't do the trend. Because it's just not going to do well. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is again, this goes with my last tip. Don't force your content. And I'll say this over and over and over again, especially once you gain a following, you're going to be so tempted to force content. Like you're going to see, oh, this trended for so-and-so and so-and-so, so I can do it. I don't have any ideas. Don't force it. It will show. It will show. It will show. It will show. And it's really hard, like when you see an idea and you don't know how to make it come back to you naturally, it's really hard to make that look good and really hard to persuade your audience like, oh, this is something related to me. I would say if you find yourself like you want to do a trend and you can't think of an idea to match with your niche, then maybe like write down a few ideas and come back to it. Usually like if something's trending on TikTok, it'll trend for a month, so you don't have to worry like I have to do this trend right now. If the idea is really good, you could do that trend next year and the video will do well. So don't force that content and don't force yourself to post, because it will show to your audience for sure. Next slide, please. Do research, especially so as storytellers, and I you know, I would say I have run into this. I will, especially when you're telling news about the continent, it's so hard to find things that are 100% 100% like, yes, this is factual, because someone will be in the comments be like, actually, you know, and we don't, it's so hard to find written history from us. So a lot of the history and news we get from are from sources that are like secondary sources. So like I was doing a video on women husbands and I said the wrong tribe in South Africa. Oh my goodness. And it's horrible. And like you, and like, even if you do your research, like you know, it's gonna come up. It's okay, as long as you make a correction, like, hey, correction, sorry, this is wrong. Like, you know, if you do your research and misinformation comes up, correct that information. Don't try to like be like, well, actually, no, correct that. Because we're trying to spread like accurate stories about the continent. So I would definitely say do research, because a lot of like the firsthand sources that you see, there's going to be contradicting information, especially when it comes to the continent. So if you have the ability, like if you have a large audience where it could be like, hey, can someone from this tribe reach out to me because I need more information about this topic? Or especially if it's a controversial topic where you really cannot get that information wrong. Really do your research and really be confident in that research, and even talk to people who contradict each other and try to come up with a cohesive story. But yeah, do your research, especially like if you're coming outside from that story. That's really a key. Next slide, please. Oh, are we okay? The next idea, don't be afraid of criticism. As your audience grows, especially if you're on, I'd say TikTok, especially YouTube, you know, any platform that allows you to reach a lot of people, you're going to get criticism. Some of it is going to be like, it could just be trolling, you know, but some of it is going to be warranted. Like the people will tell you like, hey, actually there's more to this story, or actually, you know, you may be causing bias against a group when you tell it like this, or like there's a way that you should address this group, you know, in a less offensive term. So I think criticism really helps you grow, and it helps you build a relationship with your audience, especially when that criticism is warranted. So don't take it, and I'd say don't take it personally too. You know, most people, I like to see like assume the positive, like this person's actually trying to help me. So, you know, I would say assume the positive, like when you do get criticism, especially like if it's really good advice, and use that criticism to grow. Yeah, there's been a lot of times like my followers have messaged me and be like, hey, actually, could you do this? Or actually, it's better when you do this. And that's really helped me grow. and that's really helped me gain a relationship with your audience. And if you and another note, if you take that criticism poorly and that criticism was warranted and you hold on to that criticism and you make videos about it, soon you're gonna gain like negative attention, and it's so much easier to be like, oh yeah, you're right, I will correct that and move on, than to stay on that criticism and grow negative attention. So I would say, to help your credibility and to improve your audience relationship, don't be afraid of criticism, embrace it. Sometimes maybe even ask for criticism, like, hey guys, I didn't know about this, does anyone have their opinion about whatever topic? Because it will really help you grow, and it'll help your content grow as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, do reach out to others. There's other people in your niche, especially storytelling. Like when you reach out to them, people have a network. They have like, oh, hey, actually, I see you're doing a video about this, and I know someone who has done something related to your topic. I could help you connect to them. And it's always, I feel like it's always, especially as the continent in general, it's great when we unify and work together. It's easy for us to feel like so separate from each other's countries. But reaching out to other people who are doing similar things to us it's another avenue to help you grow. So like if you see other content creators in your niche, reach out to them, or even like give praise, like, because it's so I feel like it really, just commenting like a positive thing on someone or resharing someone's post that you think like inspired you, it really, I feel like when you give good karma, it comes back to you. So resharing, highlighting, you really never know who sees what. So like resharing, like, hey, this storyteller did this really great thing, you could help them reach an audience, they could see that and reshare your stuff, and it will really come back to you. So reach out to others, or even commenting, like maybe you feel shy, comment on people's posts, reshare them, and you'll see like your community will grow, and you'll find more people, especially if you have a small niche, you'll find more people in that niche to help your audience grow too. Next slide, please. Yeah, this goes along with my my advice of not forcing, try not to copy others. It can be real, especially if you have a really specific niche. And again, like, it's super tempting, and you'll be like, if I could just post this, nobody's gonna know. They'll know, and you yourself will know. And when your work is not original, I push this again, your audience can tell. And especially when you're on a large platform, and let's say you have someone else did a video that's similar to your niche, and you're in that same niche, you post another video like that, your audience probably follows that person too, and they'll be like, oh, hey, I saw somebody else do this. And and you don't want to create that that negative like attribution with your content. And let's say that content does well, then do you have the means to create content like that again? Is that going to be something that's sustainable for you? So it's so much easier. I always push sustainability, especially like it's so easy to burn out when you are a storyteller. So again, copying other people's content will lead to burnout, or you'll become uninspired. So if you can't think of content, don't post, take a break. It will come back to you. I promise. It'll come back to you. It's not worth risking that with your audience, and it's not worth like risking the quality of your content either. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, I would say do be consistent. So and consistent is going to be different for everybody. Consistent for you could be once a month, or it could be I post twice a day. But as long as you're consistent, like when you have a video do well and your audience and you have new followers come and they see that you post consistently, it gives the chance for like your previous videos to be boosted, and the next time you post, that new video could do well. And algorithms are so weird. You could have an old video do well, and as if you've been posting consistently, you're gonna see a huge growth in followers than if you post super inconsistently, and you have an audience that doesn't know your cadence. So posting consistently really, really, really helps, but consistent to you. So once a month, if you do once a month and you can commit to once a month, do that, that's fine. You'll grow an audience. That's fine with once a month. But if you can do twice a day, do twice a day, but make sure that you can commit to that twice a day. Yeah. Next slide, please. Oh, don't be afraid to experiment. So if you, again, don't force, but if you see an idea and you can make it work towards your niche, feel free to experiment, because you may find out like, oh, I actually really like doing this form of content. Like maybe like you do video content, but you want to move on to doing podcasts. Don't be afraid to do that. Or you do short form and you want to move on to long. Don't be afraid. And there are trends that will work for you. So don't be afraid to try those trends, but don't force them. But you know, those new ideas, like maybe you're posting the same content, it's not doing well. Experimenting could be the video that leads you to go viral. You know, if what you're doing is not working, then try to mix it up. But I say that cautiously, like don't force. But if you can find trends or ideas that really work for your niche, don't be afraid to do those trends, and don't be afraid to mix things up. Like you don't have to, maybe you have your niche, you don't have to stay in your niche. You can move to another niche if you feel comfortable. That is perfectly fine. You know, I'd say like, and if you show fear or you show like nervousness towards your content, sorry, that's gonna show. So I'd say, you know, even gaslight yourself into being like, you know what, this is gonna do great. My content is gonna do great. Whatever I post will be great. And that will really help you grow your confidence and grow your ability to even adapt to different forms as well. So yeah, don't be afraid to experiment. That's perfectly fine as long as you're not forcing. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, do create a calendar. So there will be times when you have like a plethora of ideas to post. And when you do have that time, take advantage of it. And I like to create a calendar for the month and be like, okay, this day is going to be Good News Sunday. This day is going to be Current Event Day. This day is going to be Africa IRL. And doing that calendar will help you, like when you don't have any ideas, and it'll also help you stay consistent and be accountable for the content that you post, especially like once you get big, or like really there will be days like you have 7 ideas. You can't post all those 7 ideas in one day. Write them down, put them in the calendar. And soon, like telling stories is really going to feel like a job. So it's good to like treat it like a job, and also creating a calendar makes it as easy as possible for you to create. So like, because the hardest part usually is thinking of what to post or what story to tell. So use that calendar to get yourself in the rhythm, to help you be consistent, and to keep you accountable. Yeah, I would definitely advise using that calendar. Oh yeah, do reach out to brands. It is expensive to share stories, especially if you're telling them from the continent. Money for data, money for even like a place to record that's quiet and has good lighting is expensive. So reaching out, I know it's a little harder when you're not like a big celebrity, but you know, if you reach out to brands and you can sell them like, hey, my content is related to water. You're a water company. These people are interested in water. I have this many followers and this many views. You can, you know, if you know how to sell yourself, you can start to make money and not have to worry so much about like, oh, I need to tell this story, but I don't have enough, you know, I don't have enough data to even post right now. So reach out to brands. You are going to receive a lot of no's. That's okay. Those brands will reach back out to you once you start doing well. It's fine. Just ignore those no's and keep pushing, because eventually someone will say yes. So yeah, I like to do, I know some people who reach out like to 4 brands a week, they'll have an email already ready to like pitch themselves. And using that email, put your statistics, your audience, and like the overview of what you do. And it's also good to say like, and I love that your brand does this. Like, don't make the brand feel like you need money, even though you do. You want to make the brand feel like you know about their brand and you know how to sell them. So if you have like, oh, I love that your brand does charity, or I use your stuff all the time, or like maybe you're already using the brand in your videos. So you can show them like, I did this video with your brand and it did well. So I would like to be paid next time to do a video with your brand. But yeah, reach out to brands. You would be surprised who says yes too. And you never know who's watching. So I would definitely say reach out to brands, reach out to companies. Yeah, and it can help a lot with the content. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the last slide. Yeah. So now
I mean, that was a fantastic presentation. I have 6 pages of notes, quotable quotes. And Marie, so many lessons here to be learned. I think I want to dive right in, but before I do that, I want to go back to the audience. Please tell us where you're from. And also, if you have a question, I request that you put the question into the Q&A box, and we will get right to them shortly after this. So please use the Q&A box to ask your questions, but the comment sections to make a comment and introduce yourself. Marie, my favorite quote from you is that it costs money to tell stories. But I love, so I mean, and I'm sure our audience wants to know this, how can I ensure that, what are the things I need to do if I want to start telling TikTok stories, but I don't have money? I don't have money. What are the simple things I can do? And also, in addition to that, you mentioned that I should reach out to brands. Automatically in my head, I'm thinking of Coca-Cola, the big brands, because that's what I want to be associated with. Is that practical for someone who's starting, or someone who's maybe has 1,000 followers? I think 1,000 is even little, because you're one of the largest TikTokers on the continent, if not the largest. Aren't you the largest?
I don't think I'm the largest.
You're being humble. I would say you're up there. It's incredible, So for someone who has, let's say, 200 views, I think I only have 20 followers myself. All of them are people related to me. What if I wanted to get into, what do I need to do? And who are the practical, sponsors I need to engage with? Over to you.
So yeah, when you have no money, and then I, as a student, I was really having no money. So I would say if you have a smartphone, you're already ahead. A lot of people don't have a smartphone that can record like high quality data. So if you have a smartphone, use that smartphone. You don't have to use a like high-tech camera. Use your phone, or even like if you have a computer and the webcam is like okay, use that computer, or even like and it really doesn't have to be like, you do not need the iPhone 15. You can use, like, as long as like you can kind of see them, and it really doesn't have to be HD. Use whatever you have and make sure that your quality is good. Like if your quality is good, you could be recording on a potato, nobody will care, they'll still watch it. So I would say really prioritize your quality if you have no money. And also, like, as a student, I had access to free Wi-Fi. So find whatever free Wi-Fi you can to post. Yeah. And I would say like if your friends have like if your friend is friendly and they like to share and they have a good phone, be like, hey, can I use your phone to record something really quick and send it to yourself? So yeah, I would definitely say like try to use the resources that you have until you can start to make money and upgrade your resources. And for brands to reach out, yeah. So I started reaching out to brands, I think when I had like I think around 1,000. Some brands like offered to pay me like in soup, and that was like, oh, I don't know. So I would say I remember I reached out to local. So like when I was in US, I'd reach out to local brands. Like maybe there's a lady who designs African print dresses. So I reached out to her, or like really like local people who are related to your niche, but they have a lower budget and they don't need like, and then sometimes all you have to do is prove like you can market. So in the beginning, especially if really slow, I'd say accept like two sponsors for free, just so you have that in your portfolio and you can prove like, hey, I can promote and I can work with brands well. And once you've done, I would say 5 free ones is your limit. And some people would say like, no, like try to do as many as you can, but like it costs money really at the end of the day. And if you do more than that, you start to you're paying like to promote brands. So I would say have a few free ones. And once you're comfortable promoting and working with brands, use those to reach out to larger brands. Because there have been like large brands reached out to me when I had like way less than I think 100,000, and they only reached out to me because they saw I worked with a brand before. So like if you are going to reach out to a Coca-Cola or a large company like that, really don't be shy. Like don't be nervous when you do. And I would say really sell yourself. Like that's when you're really going to have to sell yourself. Like maybe you don't have a million followers, but you have really good engagement. Or you do content that's really close. Don't be scared. Be confident, and your brand is fine. Yep.
Great. I think just because I really love what you said here, that leverage on some free partnerships in order to sort of access or unlock potential paying partnerships, but still on the money. There's an assumption that there's a lot of money to be made on TikTok. Is this the reality? Because a lot of people, I just need to open a TikTok account and I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. So if you're a multi-millionaire, Marie, are you willing to sponsor me? Can you be my grantor? Because
that man, I wish it is, you know, I have seen people like been able to make money very easily, but I mean, personally for me, it's been an uphill battle. Yeah, I think there is definitely, it's definitely harder for people of color to prove that you have an audience that's engaged and an audience that will like convert into sales. So you really, I remember like I had a manager and she reached out to like 50 brands. Nobody got back to them. So it wasn't until it wasn't until like I started to have a larger amount of followers that brands would reach out to me. And even if you have a brand reach out, it doesn't mean they're going to accept your rate. Like some people will, like you could have 1 million followers and people will still pay you in soup. So I think you have to, and you're going to be desperate. Like maybe, I'll say the average rate. So like for TikTok, it's around 1,000 for every 100,000 followers that you get. That's the average rate. And people will tell you, brands will be like, no, like that's based off engagement. No, don't settle for less, because you'll be, and there'll be brands that will be like, no, I can't pay your rate, I only have $100. And there'll be brands that will accept your rate. Like you tell them 6,000 and be like, oh, fine. And if a brand just like easily says, oh, fine, that means they could have paid you double. So I would say don't settle for less, because you'll get used to like getting paid for less, and really be like, oh well, this is my rate, it's not negotiable, and that's it. But if you, and I would also say leave a little room, because it could be a really like, maybe there's a perfume brand that you like and they're niche and they don't have the budget really, then I'd say have a little room and maybe be like, oh well, I accept product and that's definitely fine. But I think, but now TikTok does have a creativity program where it's invite only, but I think they're slowly rolling it out. Apparently it does pay very, very well. Like some are getting like $1 per view. I haven't received that invitation.
So yeah, often what we hear is that African content creators are paid significantly less. Forget even just being a content creator of color, because I'll get to that later, because you sit you sit here in the middle, but you know, is that true? Would you find that your American or European counterparts are paid way more than African content creators?
Yeah, significantly more. And they assume like, oh, because the cost of living is cheaper, but it like on what, you know, on shelter maybe, but data, no. We're paying a lot of money in internet, a lot of money. So yeah, yes, they are. So I would say like to counteract that, it's always like these brands don't need to know everything. So tell them like, actually, I'm based in US and I have like you're a dual citizen and I need dollars, you know, lie. It's okay. If you can, I don't want to say lie, like a lie that you can't back up. But if it's a small one,
Can I
like,
just say she's joking about the lying? She's
yeah,
not saying that you lie.
joking.
And we don't advocate for lying
Yes.
on African
Yes. Yes. But tell
Yeah.
them, find a reason to say like, no, actually I need to be paid in dollars, or like this is my rate. Like, find a reason to justify like, no, this is my rate because X, Y, and Z. Because there are if you have an audience, like you have a larger audience than your Western counterpart, then you should be paid the same amount regardless of your cost of living, because your influence is priceless. So I would say yes, we do get paid less, and don't be shell shocked. Maybe they'll give you a rate and it's high for you, but for your Western counterpart, that's very low. So I would say always negotiate to a number. I would say negotiate to the number that makes you feel uncomfortable. Then that should be your starting rate. Mm-hmm.
Negotiate to a number that makes you feel uncomfortable. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
You have so many quotable quotes, Marie. I think my next question is, what are the challenges? Because a lot of people also are seeing, myself included, that it's just fun and games. But I love what you said, that treat it like a profession.
Mm-hmm.
What are the challenges you face in creating content and getting yourself out there, and being in the position that you are? What can a potential TikToker expect?
Yeah. So I would say, when you make a mistake, everyone was going to let you know that you have made a mistake. And so I think being able to build that like shield, like, well, this is the internet. I can't take everything so personal. Address the mistake, move on. But that is definitely, I think that was my biggest challenge. Like, whoa, like dealing with that feedback, especially on the continent, we are more honest, and there's a little less, there's not as much sugarcoating as our Western counterparts. So like being able to deal with that honesty was a learning curve for me. And I think like having to prove your credibility, especially when you're talking about Africa, has been extremely challenging, because we're fed so much misinformation, and it's really hard to prove like what's true and what's not true, especially if it's like a history thing, and nobody's seen like this historical thing before. Like, it's really hard to convince people. So like really trying to prove your credibility has also been extremely challenging. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you. I think one of the things that you said that really stuck to my mind is that don't be afraid to correct something, because I may put something out there, but I'd be afraid to correct it because also of cancel culture.
Yeah.
So there are two things here. There's cancel culture, and then there's also this sort of hubris where one believes that they are untouchable, and anyone who tries to correct them is a hater.
Yeah.
How do you balance the two between, let's just even begin with the first one, where if you make a mistake and you're being bashed online, I would automatically deactivate my account. I don't think that's the wisest thing to do. What is a practical thing a person should do to ensure that they continue telling their stories?
I think if it's a small mistake, address it in the comments. If it's a very big mistake, like you've offended a population, make a video, apologize, show that you understood and you've heard your audience, then move on. But I think if you stay on that mistake too hard, people are going to start to associate with you with that mistake, and it's way easier for you to get canceled. So I'd say try to move on as quickly as possible, while also like taking in that mistake and showing that you've learned from it. But once you've learned from it, move on as quickly as you can, so that your audience doesn't stay with that mistake too much. Mm-hmm.
Great. I also love that you said be teachable. So I'm going to quickly go to the comments. So if you have questions, please type them in, because now is when I'm answering or letting Marie answer your question. How often do you upload on TikTok?
On TikTok, I'd say I'd say when I'm in the groove, I try to do 3 videos a week, but I do take breaks. Okay. So sometimes I'll take a month break, I won't post, then I'll go back into the groove. But I say for me, sustainable is no, not 3 a day, 3 a week. I hope I said 3 a week.
3 videos a week.
Yeah.
Yes, you said
3 videos
so
a week.
Because I just to leverage on that question, you had said that, be consistent, but what consistent looks like to you individually. So
Right.
how do you balance between being consistent and ensuring that you don't get lost in the algorithm of it all?
Right.
Where if you say, I'm going to post once a week, then you become forgotten, because like there are some accounts I like on TikTok and I
Mhm,
never see them again,
mhm.
So what
I
can
can
I do
see.
to ensure that I don't want to say beat the algorithm, but
Uh-huh.
what can I ensure to just that I stay on top of people's feeds?
Yeah. So I think TikTok really likes, at least for TikTok and even Instagram, they want you to be on the app as
Mm.
much as possible. So they will sometimes they'll like manipulate you into being like, oh, you post a video, it doesn't do
Mm.
well. Another one, it doesn't do well. And they
Mhm.
want you to keep posting. And so usually I'll post until a video does well and then I'll take a break.
Okay,
Because yeah, usually after that video does well, my next videos don't do well unless I take a break. And I'm getting so many comments and so much feedback, it could be overwhelming to like continue to post and respond. So usually I'll post until like a video like it's hit 1 million, it's time for me to take a break. Or if I can't come up with any ideas and I know like the next videos I post, if I post right now, it's gonna be forced, it's gonna be boring and unoriginal,
yeah,
I'll take a break until I feel inspired again. Then I'll post.
great.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you. We have Azura from Ghana, who wants to know, one, do you get paid and how are you paid?
Mhm.
Azura also has a second question. I'm feeling generous today, so I'll allow it. What is the minimum or maximum seconds or minutes your videos last?
So, do I get paid? Yes. Um, do I get paid? What? And then was it how much I get paid too?
Yes. How? No. How are you paid? How?
How are you paid? So yes, I do
If you
get
can,
paid.
yeah.
It's not. I wouldn't say it's consistent. It's through grants, like through African Filter, or it's through brand deals. And so how I get paid. So it is very hard to get paid in the continent through bank transfer. So for my people in the continent who have like an African bank account, I'd say the best way to get paid is through Wise, because Wise is the most friendly with African banks, and I think most banks are used to that. So make a Wise account, and especially
Is that WISE?
yes, WISE
Okay, Wise
Wise.
account. Okay, I'm typing it here for everybody to see, and yeah,
Yeah.
great. I hope they're paying you for this.
That would be nice. Alright.
please, please let Wise know that the African No Filter
uh,
community.
mhm.
Yeah. So now back to Azuri's question around, so yeah, open a Wise account. What is the minimum or maximum seconds or minutes your videos last?
So minimum, like if I'm doing a trend, that could be 10 seconds. But for my most of my content, it'll usually go to the minute mark or to like 2 minutes at the maximum. Especially but for YouTube, I like to keep it 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. But yeah, for my like if you're telling a story, I like to use all the time a minute. But now TikTok and Instagram let you post like longer videos, so I do go longer, a minute 30, 2 minutes maximum. Yeah. Hmm.
Great, 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 great. I think Achor Oteno has a question here. What can I do with an audience of 1K? How can I optimize and grow from here? I'm a local storyteller
Hmm.
using photography and short videos.
I would say
Mm.
try to like when I had lower followers, I
Mhm.
would say that is really you want to experiment and you want to stick to content that is very, very interesting. So if you have things that are shocking, controversial even,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what's gonna help people. You want content that people are gonna sit and watch, because if people once the algorithm sees like people are sitting here and watching and staying on the app, they will push you
Mm.
to a large audience. So try. I don't want to say controversial, like just controversial to be controversial, but topics that this is going to be very interesting. That is what's going to help you grow. So even things that make you like you're kind of nervous to post that, because that means someone is going to be interested and they're going to want to see that. So I would say like things that are in your community that are interesting, things that are trending topics in your community, post about those, or photograph, or tell stories about those. Yeah. things that are interesting and things that are trending that you can connect to your niche. I would say will really help you grow.
Vanessa Canby wants to know, do you cross-post exactly the same content across platforms, or do you re-edit or upload totally different content?
So for Instagram and TikTok, it's mostly the same. But sometimes Instagram gives me a little leeway with controversy. So I will I can say, like, I can be a little bit more unfiltered on Instagram. So sometimes TikTok I'll edit to be a little more filtered. But on YouTube, it's long form, and YouTube doesn't pay me, so I can do whatever I want on YouTube. So on YouTube, I do long form content, and that's also a way more unfiltered on YouTube.
Fantastic. I think I'd just like to ask a question around posting in platforms. Do you, because you are based in the US and also in Tanzania, you know, does the content vary, and is the reception different from your audience in the US and your audience on the continent? Do they receive your content differently? How does it land? Do you have to tweak it when you want to direct it towards the continent? And yeah.
Yes, there's definitely a difference in the audience. There's a difference in my audience that's in the continent than in the United States. And there's definitely a difference in reception. And most of my audience, like if you're my audience in the continent, then that means there's not a lot of lower class, because it means at least you have data that can use TikTok, and you have a phone that supports the app. So there's a more backlash when I talk about I don't want to say negative things that perpetuate negativity on the continent. There's more backlash, and there's I get a bigger push from my African audience to push things that are more positive. And they mostly watch my like good news Sundays or my cool African things. But my Western audience definitely enjoys more of my current events, like real things going on in the continent. And while they watch the positive news, honestly, it doesn't do well over there. So I still post it because it needs to be shown. But I know, like, I'm posting this, and it like sometimes it just won't even be pushed when I'm in the US. Like I'll post it, and I see like, oh, only my African audience sees that. So I'd
super
say
interesting.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. But
so
yeah.
Amy Ward would like to know, what have you found to be a good schedule for posting, daily, weekly, or is timing not as important as making sure you're creating content that's tailored for your niche?
I'd say timing doesn't matter as long as you're creating content that's tailored for your niche. Like if you have a really good idea and you like, maybe you post every day, but you need another day to get that idea really down, take that time, because that's making a high quality video is really what's going to push you. So I'd say if you know, like, I need more time and I can't stick to schedule, but this is going to be a really good video, take that time, you know, because your audience is going to see that. Yeah, so I would say prioritize the quality over the quantity, and eventually you'll be able to get into a rhythm. Yeah.
I love that response. Quality and rhythm. Jenna Solomon, how do you split your focus between your different projects, like your channel and your NGO, but still give each quality focus? I think this is a compliment, Marie. They're like, you're doing amazing work. Where do you have the time?
Usually I see like what needs to be a priority now, and I'll work off of that. Or I also work off of like my body and what my intuition is telling me to do. So like if I really don't feel to post, then I'll let myself do that and let myself focus on other projects. Or if I feel like there'll be times like I'm doing consulting and be like, oh, I just want to post a video. I cannot work right now, and I'm not going to accept any more clients. Then I'll start to focus again on Habar and Jama. So, you know, that's a privilege for me. But if you have to work, you have to work, then yes. I would say you really, especially in the beginnings when you're not making any money, it's going to be like a 9 to 5 and 5 to 9. So like you're going to have to really schedule that time, like in your calendar, be like, okay, these 2 hours is just my content and my storytelling time, and use that time. Like, and even if you don't, like, find time that you can, like maybe you only have 30 minutes, but take that 30 minutes and really, focus on what you want to do. And I think over time that really helps. And eventually, once you start getting money and like more resources towards storytelling, then you'll be able to just listen to your body. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the key thing here is Marie says, don't quit your day job just yet.
Yeah.
Keep your day job. There's an anonymous question here. You mentioned niches, but what if you're anti-niche or you want to be the brand yourself? How would you balance privacy and sharing your life?
Woo, that's
Interesting.
yeah, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
if you are the brand, then, and you get a large audience, really, honestly, there's gonna be no privacy. Because, especially in the age of the internet, I found people feel like they are your friend and they feel like they have a relationship with you. So I'd say maybe make your boundaries now. Like, I'm definitely never going to post about this, and be very strict about that boundary. But everything else that you're okay with sharing, that should be free game. And those ones that you're comfortable with sharing, share those more and more often, so your audience is used to that. But it doesn't have to be as long as you have your boundaries, then you can be, then I think it's great to be anti-niche. But yeah.
I love that. Have clear boundaries at the beginning of what lines you're not going to cross. Justin has a lovely question. What are your thoughts on having different presenters on your channel? I'm a very small organization and not really the age of the audience we're trying to reach. I'm hoping to find young people who can do TikToks based on our content. I'm guessing we'd have a few different people, so the channel may not have a consistent feel. So he has two things here. He wants to get different people on his channel, and then so he's afraid that may not have a consistent feel.
I think if you can get people to agree, like, hey, like I say, you probably have to make a contract. Like, I'm gonna give you 4 videos, so you can post 4 videos a month. And if you can get those contracts renewed, then that helps a lot with consistency. And sometimes, your audience will grow attached to one type of presenter. I see that happen all the time. So hopefully they grow attached when you guys can monetize, because, eventually these people do become critical to the success of your videos. So I would say, try to make contracts in the beginning and try to monetize as quickly as possible, so you can keep those people constant. Yeah. Or provide some type of incentive towards being in that channel.
I mean, we could go on and on, Marie. I have so many questions, but I'm also very conscious of time. I want to respect your time. I want to say thank you so much. I think I'm not going to be the next TikTok star thanks to this masterclass. So everybody, watch out for my TikTok page. Please follow me in the next coming weeks. I'm kidding. Marie, it's been my ultimate pleasure to host you. I've learned so much, so many quotable quotes. I think what I love most about this conversation is that you've been clear about one. If you make a mistake, own up to it. Don't be afraid to collaborate. Don't be afraid to receive feedback. Don't be afraid to reach out to brands, big or small. Sometimes it's okay to take free gigs in order to ensure you get the larger ones. Is there anything you'd like to say? Any closing remarks that you have for us before I reach out? I allow for my colleagues to send up. We will be sending a follow-up email with a link to the recording and a summary of today's webinar.
Yeah, I would say, I think the most important, like the thing that really helped me do well, is that if there was nobody else to believe in myself, I had to be the only one who believed in my content. So especially like telling stories in the continent, it can be hard because people haven't seen like the value of sharing those stories. So really, you need to be like your number one fan and your number one supporter, and like hype yourself up and reward yourself when you do well too. Yeah. So say
thank you so much. Be your number one fan. I think that's a fantastic note to end on. I have been your host, Natasha Kimani, Head of Partnerships and Research at Africa No Filter. It has been my ultimate pleasure. Thank you for making the time to be with us. And thank you to my phenomenal panelist, Marie. You've been incredible. What an honor it's been.
Thank you guys.
Have
Thank
a
you guys so
lovely
much for having
evening.
me. Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you so much. Cheers.